How's it going, everyone? Nick should be on in just a second. He's wrapping up a call on the other side, so he's going to jump on. And I see Jason here right now. Alistair says, I come just to see what shirt you're wearing. Yeah, I try to deliver. Jason, how's it going?
Hey, Nick, how's it going, man? Nice to see you.
This is actually Dan. We haven't met
before.
Oh,
hey, Dan.
Nick's going to be my co-host here, and he's wrapping up a meeting right now, so he should be on any moment. I really appreciate you coming on. And have you and Nick chatted before this?
We've chatted. We've never met.
Never met. Cool. Well, we had your business partner on the other day, and it was a delight. So really looking forward to chatting.
Awesome. Great.
I don't know if he told you much about our chat.
He did not yet. So we spoke last night on Instagram. We did an Instagram live. You know, we do. Cool. My wife and I do one every night, just kind of how people are doing and all of this. So Ray came on, so it was good.
Is that something that you guys started during?
When
all this, or something you did?
Yep. Yeah, Redman family quarantine. We're on today's day 39, I believe.
Oh, right on. You do it 7 days a week? Every
night, 8:30 p.m. Roughly right around 8:30 p.m. We try to shoot right for 8:30. Sometimes with dinner and everything, we're a little later.
Sure. Yeah,
people don't seem to mind. They like it. You know, people like the being able to connect, and that was kind of one of the reasons why we did it. In this, we knew there were a lot of people out there that were going to be alone, and a lot of people, needing that social connection. So
100%.
We said, hey, we'll open our family, and we'll just tell you what we're going and what we're doing and what's going on, and spread some little positivity.
Well, that's awesome. That's kind of the concept that we have here with what we call Seeking Certainty, and we started that. And this might be very similar timeline, week 5 or week 6, where my background is in finance and risk management, and Nick's got kind of a marketing and health background, and so trying to provide kind of different perspectives and help people work through all the uncertainty we have. So we've been doing something similar, which is cool, and that was a theme that we noticed when we had Ray on, which is that while we have different businesses, a lot of the models and frameworks that we have are really similar, just different language. So
absolutely, I think I've found that across the board. And it's funny, even within the SEAL teams, I watch other SEAL speakers, and because we all grew up in the same environment, a lot of our lessons we've learned are the same, although guys have different stories to illustrate those lessons.
Right. Yeah. Well, here's Nick.
So, Nick,
Jason,
what's up, man? I'm good.
Ray's a character.
Ray is definitely a character, man. That is a great way of describing Ray. Larger than life.
I love it. Great energy. I'm kind of the opposite. I'm very calm. I watch some of your stuff too. You seem to be there's a good balance there between you and him, right?
We are, and a lot of people like that, and we play off that a lot. Obviously with my background becoming an officer, and he was enlisted, so there's a lot of fun banter that goes on in our show with those things.
Awesome. Cool. Well, what I'll do is I'll introduce you really quick. I know we talked on the phone a bit. We're super laid back. This is all private clients, platinum members. So we're a little more laid back. We're a little more intimate. And everybody dropping on. I apologize, I was late in the middle of a private client event myself here. Super stoked. If you saw Ray, there was so much good feedback about Ray. People dropping in the group saying I'm not going to sleep for 3 weeks after listening to that guy talk.
Yeah, that's awesome. Both a positive and a negative.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what we have here is we have Ray's, you guys are partners in the podcast, right? You do the podcast together?
That's correct. Yep.
And he's very much conquer, right? That was his whole attack the hill, conquer. And the role that you play is the overcome. right? The overcoming hardship, going through hard times. Now, let me explain to everybody why that is appropriate, like why you are probably the person to talk to about overcoming hard times. It was 2007 that you were struck by machine gun fire.
That's right.
Did you know how many bullets you took, how many times you were hit?
I was hit 8 times.
8 times at once, like all same time.
Yeah, between my body armor and body. So 2 rounds in the elbow and a round in the face, multiple rounds in the body armor, rounds off the helmet, night vision goggles, weapon, side plate.
That's insane. And as of 2012, so this is, I pulled this off a website here. You'd undergone 37 surgeries, 15 skin grafts. Is that number the same, or have you had to go back for more?
I'm up to 40 now, and that's it. I won't have any more. At least I hope not to have any more. There are a lot of doctors out there that they're anxious to always do more, but
Sure.
I kind of believe in the law of diminishing returns. So,
Yep, agreed. The less intervention, the better. And so I just want to read this real quick, and I just want to let you talk because you have a framework that is very similar to the framework that Dan uses in business development and finance. So I'll set the stage for that. But I wanted to read this because this, from what I understand, was a sign on your door in the hospital, right? Attention to all who enter here. If you are coming into this room with sorrow or to feel sorry for my wounds, go elsewhere. The wounds I received, I got in a job I love, doing it for people I love, supporting the freedom of a country I deeply love. I'm incredibly tough and will make a full recovery. What is full? That is the absolute utmost physical my body has the ability to recover. Then I will push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you are about to enter is a room for fun, optimism, and intense, rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. So just for anybody that's complaining about the things going on maybe in their business right now, I would implore you to go online and search for that and find that. And so then you were honored with a Purple Heart and the Bronze Star Medal with Valor. What is that like getting a Purple Heart, out of curiosity? What's the presentation like? Walk me through that. I'm just curious.
It happened in the hospital. And it was our senior SEAL leader, Joe Kernan, who is just a great guy. I've known Joe for many years, and came into the room, and it was pretty early. I was pretty mangled up. I mean, I do have some pictures somewhere of it. I don't know, for whatever reason, I put a ball cap on, and I've got beard from many weeks of not being shaven, and I had no use of my left arm. They were still early talking about whether they would amputate my arm or not. So you can just see it kind of resting next to me. And people came into the room and they read the citation. And of course is the presentation of the medal itself, which is pretty awesome. Although, I have to tell you, with a little dark humor in the military, we also joke about that medal. And I affectionately call us slow movers, those of us who have earned that medal. I later took that medal and had it, when I retired, I had it turned into a necklace. I had it inscribed and turned into a necklace and gave it to my youngest daughter.
That's awesome. That's great. Cool. So first of all, thanks again for being here. I know we kind of went into, like we always do with Seeking Certainty. We just collect phenomenal people, kind of go into a blind and just jam. Navy family here, go SEALs.
Awesome, Misty. Yeah, thank you.
And so what you have is a framework how to get through hard times. And what I'll do is I'll share Dan's framework that we use on everything, which is CASE. It's compile, analyze, strategize, and execute. Right. And from what I understand, you have your own. I believe it's 4 steps also. But you have a framework of getting through hard times. And what I would love to do is, just from your perspective, just have you share that with this group of people that it's all super high performing people, business owners. And right now, obviously, we're all going through hard times, and a lot of these companies are getting hit really hard. So I'd just love for you to jam on your framework for getting through hard times, getting through these difficult situations.
Yeah, and before you do that, just quick reminder, if you guys have questions, drop them in the Q&A with some context, and we'll go through the Q&A at the end. Sorry about that. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, thank you, and Nick, thank you. So, and Nick, just for the format, is this more of you guys moderating this, or is this me just kind of launching into this? And
I would love for you to launch into it. And then what all of our members know, here's a reminder for all of our members, is that there's a Q&A box. And if they want to continue the conversation or ask questions, they can do so. And they'll provide the context. So they'll say, hey, regarding, point number 4, what did you mean by X, Y, Z? But I would love, it depends on your personality. If you prefer the dialogue, we can do that. I would love just stream of consciousness. Like you've had talks with hundreds, if not thousands of people about this. And we like to just let people roll, just dive into it and roll.
Okay. Excellent. All right, guys. Well, listen, I mean, it is unprecedented times. I think we're probably all tired of hearing that phrase, but in life, we all will meet these moments that are unprecedented. And I really have come to build my life around these moments. For a lot of people out there, for many of the companies and sports teams that I've spoken for, oftentimes I get asked, hey, what is your subject matter expertise? Well, I would definitely describe myself as an expert in helping individuals overcome crisis, failure, massive chaos, or having to implement massive change, because it really has been the story of my life through a 21-year SEAL career, later a nonprofit, and then now obviously out in the entrepreneurial world with speaking, coaching, and consulting. All of it, and I'll be honest, none of this, like many things in life, hindsight becomes 20/20. It's when we look back on things where the lessons really start to evolve. And my lesson really started this journey. The real journey started in 2004. And that was when I was commissioned as a young SEAL officer. And I'd been an enlisted SEAL, and I had excelled at a very high level in my SEAL enlisted career, ranked at the very top. And that's how I actually got recommended for a commission. And I got sent to school, went to Old Dominion University, and graduated #1 in my class, came back as a brand new officer. But there was a significant thing that happened in the world while I was at school, and that was 9/11. So while I was at school getting my degree and going through Navy leadership training, the rest of my teammates were at war. And the world changed overnight within the SEAL teams. The last time we had seen sustained combat was during Vietnam. So a lot of the tactics we were utilizing in Vietnam were the same tactics we were trying to apply on the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. And very quickly, we figured out that, this long-term counterinsurgency jungle warfare we were fighting in Vietnam did not work in Iraq and Afghanistan. So there was an entire rewrite of SEAL tactics and how we did things. So fast forward to 2004, when I got commissioned, I came back, and as often happens with young, successful leaders, I became too close to two very dangerous friends, ego and arrogance. And I came back thinking I was going to be God's gift of leadership to the SEAL teams, like I was going to be Patton for the SEAL teams or something, and that I was going to come back and rush into combat and lead my team to amazing success. And not only did that not happen, what happened is all our tactics had changed. Everything that I knew from my past was different. And to make a long story short, I stumbled. I started making mistakes. I started hanging on too tight. And instead of humbling myself and saying, hey man, I don't know how to do this, can you guys get me up to speed? I did what oftentimes leaders with not enough humility, I just continued grinding without asking for help. And it was further eroding and damaging my credibility. Fast forward to 2005, found myself in Afghanistan, right on the tail end of Operation Red Wings. For many of you that read the book Lone Survivor, that was actually my troop. Eric Christensen, who was played by Eric Bana in the movie Lone Survivor, was my task unit commander. I had many friends on the helicopter that was shot down. And it was just this perfect storm of everything that was moving along. So me struggling as a leader, the helicopter being shot down, and several months later, I made a bad call on a mission. I basically chose to go down into a valley to try and support guys in a firefight. And all of that was this perfect storm that got me in trouble. Longest, hardest road I've ever walked to build back my professional reputation after that happened. So you may be asking, why am I telling you all this? Because it sets the stage for the future and what really began to form this overcome mindset, coming to understand what it is to encounter adversity and also how we lead ourselves through massive adverse situations. The SEAL teams and the special operations community are a community that does not tolerate tactical mistakes very well. We will tolerate a lot of mistakes. There are many things I won't even get into, but there are many things where we'll allow personality flaws. You can be the biggest jerk on the planet, but if you're a good operator, you know, we want to be around you. But if you are not a good operator, those are the things that will not be tolerated, especially in the leadership community. So when I made these mistakes, I mean, there were guys that would said, hey, kick him out and get rid of him. And it's almost impossible in our community. As a matter of fact, when I retired in 2013, one of our most respected leaders, who was one of my commanding officers, spoke. And he said that Jason Redman is one of the very few SEALs I've ever seen who managed to damage his professional reputation at the level that he did, but then turn it around and come back and be as respected as he is when he left the community. But guys, that was the hardest, most difficult road I have ever walked. It took 2.5 years of absolute humility and humbling myself and truly becoming a voracious student of leadership. I read every book I could find. I humbled myself. I reached out to the guys every chance I got. And I just focused on 3 rules of leadership that I teach. Lead yourself, lead others, lead always. And that is the component. And 75% of leadership falls under rule number 1, leading always. And I have a whole talk that gets deep into that. I'm telling you all of that because I got my career back on track. I found myself in Iraq in 2007, and literally I was at the height of my career. I had been given the thumbs up to screen for our top tier SEAL team, which to have gone from just about 3 years prior where I'd made all these mistakes to actually be given the thumbs up to go screen for our next level SEAL team was absolutely amazing. Because just to screen and be able to go to that team, you have to have the highest levels of recommendations. So I was coming home from that deployment to do my screening a few weeks after I got back. So physically, I was a beast. Mentally, I was locked on. I had seen a lot of combat in this deployment. I had done a lot of really good things. And I was riding this high wave. 1 week before going home, we had all our gear packed up, and the only thing we were on standby for was something we call time-sensitive targets. Part of our mission over there was to go after the senior leaders in Iraq, and my team was focused on the western province of Iraq, what we call the Al-Anbar province. And on September 12, 2007, we got word that the #1 leader for Al-Qaeda was going to be in a specific time and location. A guy we'd been hunting all deployment. He had been responsible for the deaths of a fellow SEAL. He'd been responsible for the deaths of a lot of coalition, U.S. forces, other coalition fighters. So we really wanted this guy. So we got the word that night that we were launching on that mission. And my boss came up to me and said, hey, you're going to lead this mission. You're going to lead the actual target takedown. And so we launched on this mission. I'm not going to get into a lot of details for time, but the bottom line is the mission did not unfold in the manner that we thought it was going to. And roughly, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours from the time we got tasked from that mission at about 3 a.m. in the morning in a small town, coincidentally called Karma, Iraq, I found myself on the receiving end of an enemy machine gun, stitched across the body armor, 3 rounds. 2 rounds in my left elbow, which I thought in the moment shot my arm off. I took rounds off my helmet. I had my left night vision tube shot off. I was taking rounds off my weapon. My medic literally almost had his leg severed off as he had a high caliber machine gun round hit him right below the knee. One of our other guys ran forward to grab our medic and start pulling back. I was still trying to lay down fire for those guys when both 2 very large PKM, big belt fed weapon, shoots bullets about as big as my thumb, opened up on me again. I quickly realized this was a bad place to be. And I turned to move back to the only point of cover we had, which was a large tractor tire about 15 yards behind me where our guys had fallen back to fight. It was at that point that one of the rounds caught me from behind and hit me right in front of the ear. It hit me directly in front of this little crease in your ear, traveled through my face, exited the right side of my nose, took off most of my nose, blew out my right cheekbone, broke what was left of it, kicked it out to the right. The bullet traveled right under my eye, vaporized my orbital floor. It broke all the bones above my eye. It shattered the head of my jaw, shattered my jaw down to my chin, and it knocked me out. When I came to, one, obviously I was in a lot of pain, and two, this raging firefight was occurring over me. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no hope. I mean, what can I do in this situation? Literally, I was watching tracer fire travel about 8 inches above me as I was in the middle of this fierce firefight between my guys and the enemy that was all around us. And it was a larger enemy force than us. We had 6 guys, 3 of which were wounded, me being one of the 6. One was an interpreter. So technically we only had 5 shooters. 3 were out of the fight. So only 2 guys shooting against about a 15, 16 man enemy force with 2 large belt-fed machine guns. So my initial thought was, oh my God, I'm all shot up. My arm's been shot off. I've been shot in the face. There's no hope. My next thought was, there's nothing I can do. I'm totally out of the fight. And then I thought to myself, this is out of my control. The interesting thing about that is none of those things are true. And the interesting thing about those statements is I hear a lot of my friends in business that are making those same statements to me about what's going on in the world. Oh my God, this is so horrific. There's no hope. Or, oh my God, my business, I'm watching my business fall apart in front of me and there's nothing I can do. Oh my God, I've lost all my revenue and it's just totally out of my control. And those are lies you're telling yourself. You may not be able to get back to the level that you've been at because the world has drastically changed. No different that the world drastically changed in that minute in that firefight for me. But there's always hope. There's always something you can do. And there are always things that are within your control. And as I lay in that firefight, I shook myself out of this ridiculous moment that I was having and told myself, hey, you've got to go home. I had a 8-year-old son. I had a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old daughter, a beautiful wife that's been supporting me for many years through many, many deployments and hard situations. And I was like, I have to go home. When we're in these situations, how do you find hope? Well, you find hope because you focus on the positive in the negative. This is one of the most powerful things you can do as a business owner. It's one of the most powerful things you can do as a human being. And I don't care how bleak the situation looks, there always is something positive out of a negative situation. And as I lay there literally bleeding out, that was one of my first thoughts. I was like, okay. I thought about the fact that you have got to show up at that combat support hospital alive. I remember watching a show called Baghdad ER, and it was about our amazing military medical professionals and the work they were doing in the military emergency rooms, what we call combat support hospitals. And there was a statistic that I remember watching on that show that stuck in my mind no matter what. And I told myself, if any of our guys get hit, I know as long as I can get them to that combat support hospital alive, they'll survive. Never did I think that I'd be the one that'd be applying this statistic. But it was this: if you can make it to the combat support hospital with a pulse, you have a 90% chance of making it home alive. So instantly, I turned this no hope moment into hope. It gave me something to grab onto. And I told myself, I don't care what happens, man. If you have to reach your fist into your chest cavity and squeeze your heart, you're going to show up at that hospital with a pulse. You've got to stay awake to stay alive. So that became my thought process. It is so critical to understand that you have to control what you can in these situations. And I'm going to talk about the methodology I use to do things like that. The other thing that you have to do is understanding what we go back to is choosing that positivity in the face of negativity. I meet so many people that are in dire situations and it is their natural inclination to just go negative. Bad things are happening to them, so they mire themselves in the negativity. And all it does is creates this downward spiral. People who end up dying quickly have the ability to survive if they can hang on with hope. There were so many times in that firefight that everything in me wanted me to just go to sleep. It was the greatest fatigue I've ever felt in my entire life. It felt like 10,000-pound weights were trying to pull me under the water in the darkest ocean. And there were so many times I wanted to give into that. But I knew that if I went to sleep, I would never wake up again. And it was hope. I knew I had to get myself to these amazing military medical professionals to save me. And that is everything that I built around that. Well, back up for a second. One of the things that I learned in my special operations career was when you are attacked, when there is a point of attack, when there is an incident, we have a saying. We call it immediate action drill. And basically that saying is you have to get off the X as quickly as possible. The X is any point of attack, any incident. And I knew that, and my team knew that. So we knew that in order to survive this gunfight, we had to get off that X. We had to get off the point of incident. The interesting thing, fast forward now, it's been 12 years. I have come to learn that that moment where we feel like there's no hope, it's beyond my control, there's nothing I can do, all these moments are the moments when people are on the X. Right now, America is on the X. The world is on the X. Your business is on the X. You're on the X. There are so many people that are on the X mentally. And people get absolutely stuck on the X. And what I began to find that is in life, the individuals that I work with, whether it was wounded warriors who have been through an event, whether it's businesses that have been through some catastrophic event, or whether it is individuals that have been through some traumatic event, we all get stuck on the X at some point. And the key is you have to get off the X, no different than my teammates and I were able to get off the X in that firefight. And as I began to work with people, I realized that the principles we utilize in gunfights actually work no different in the average everyday world. And there's going to be moments in your life where you're going to get stuck on the X. You see, that ambush that I encountered in Iraq, even though it was actual bullets and bombs that were hitting me, everybody in life gets hit by the bullets and bombs of life. Right now, your business is getting hit by the bullets and bombs of this coronavirus pandemic. But this is not the last life ambush you are going to encounter. I got bad news for you. The average person in this life will go through 5 major life ambushes. You will lose someone. Someone will have a life-threatening disease or illness or one to you. There'll be other business mishaps that'll occur. Unfortunately, someone around your circle, sexual trauma could occur. You could, one of the highest levels of life ambushes I've seen is the loss of a child. These things are going to happen. So having the mindset, the proactive mindset, and the tool in your tool bag to know when these things come along, I have to get off the X as quickly as I possibly can. Working with all these different individuals, one of the things that I began to find was high performance individuals, what separates them and what makes them more successful, whether it's a company, a team, or an individual, was one defining fact: how quickly they got off the X. The people that sit there and feel sorry for themselves and whine and cry and say this isn't fair and just waste so much time on the mere fact that their world got turned upside down, and they spend all this time looking behind them going, but I want that back. I want back my revenue. I want back the life I had. I want back when everything was good. All you're doing is wasting time. And the interesting thing about being on the X in those moments is it's like quicksand. It pulls you down, and it gets harder and harder to get up and get out of it the longer you sit in it. So the individuals, the teams, and the companies that get off the X the fastest are the ones that thrive. They don't just survive, they thrive. But that is a mindset. That is not a reactive thing. It is a proactive thing that has to be built into your mindset. It has to be built into your team. And then there's a series of tools we utilize to be able to do that. So what I tell people is you have to be able to react to overcome. When you're in a life ambush, you've got to react. REACT is an acronym composed of 5 different principles. The first one, the R, is you've got to recognize you're in a crisis. And believe it or not, this is probably one of the biggest hurdles that I meet in people, because human beings, we naturally want to deny we're going through a crisis. Leaders are some of the worst, because leaders of companies, leaders of teams, even leaders of families don't want to admit that they've lost control. Because leaders want to be able to control and shape the direction that they're going. They want to be the visionary. They want to say, follow me. And when a major crisis happens, things are beyond our control. So it takes a moment of humility to admit there is a crisis and we need to address it. Houston, we've got a problem and we need to get everybody together. Unfortunately, in life and as humans, oftentimes people don't do it. We're in denial. Oh yeah, this isn't that bad. We'll figure it out. As either A, you're physically bleeding out as I was, or B, you're bleeding out dollars. Either one can lead to death. So one of the biggest things, you can't be in denial. You must recognize. Number two that starts to happen is people avoid. They start pushing other people away. You know, hey, John or Jill, Bill, hey, I kind of noticed, you know, you seem a little down. What's going on? And instead of reaching out to our friends or our team members and saying, hey, look, we need to sit down. We've got a problem. We need to figure out solutions. We start pushing people away. And the last favorite American pastime and really human pastime of dealing with crisis is self-medication. We start drinking, drugs, other risky behaviors to try and numb the pain and do anything not to think about the trauma, the crisis, the change, the massive adversity we're going through. So guys, I can't convey enough how important it is in a crisis, how quickly to recognize, identify what it is, and start bringing your team members together. Believe it or not, this even happens in gunfights. When I was working with forces, you know, one of the things we did is we trained Iraqi special forces and Iraqi police when I was in Iraq. And oftentimes, some of these guys had no experience whatsoever. And I remember on patrol sometimes in some of the first gunfights we got into, you know, immediately we'd start getting shot at. And the first rule of a gunfight is find something that stops bullets. Because obviously I'm living proof your body doesn't. So yeah, you want to find cover first. And the bullets would start flying and I would immediately find some cover and I'd survey where, you know, everybody was so we could get away. And I'd have some young Iraqi kid out there just taking a knee in the middle of the open. And I'd be like, what are you doing? And he'd go, I think we're being shot at. And I'm like, yes, we're absolutely being shot at, man. You need to recognize it and you need to get your ass back here and get some cover. But it happens in life too. We are slow to really want to articulate that there is a problem. So guys, I cannot convey this to you enough. Build a mindset of rapidly identifying there is a problem, articulate it, and then be ready to go to get off that X. Number two, E, you've got to evaluate your assets and inventory. That moment of there is no hope, there's nothing I can do, it's all out of my control is a lie. And what you have to do very quickly in that crisis, the first thing you want to do is figure out what assets do you have at your disposal? What's in your inventory to bring to bear on that problem? As I lay there in that firefight, you know, despite how badly I was wounded, because I had been in combat for a while and I'd been in the SEAL teams for a while, I immediately started going through the things that I needed to do as a leader. It just kind of was second nature, like, oh, well, you know, we're in a bad situation, so let me think through. And I remember thinking to myself, I got a Marine Corps quick reaction force that's about, you know, 2 kilometers away. I've got some helicopters that are off station for us. I've got drones overhead. I've got my teammates in a house about 150 yards away. And oh yeah, I got an AC-130 gunship, which is amazing military precision aircraft by the Air Force, which we ended up utilizing, actually calling fire directly on our position, the closest fire mission in the entire Iraq war, which ended up saving our lives and getting us out of there. But this was the inventory list that I went down. It's no different in life or in your business. Once you articulate, this is the crisis, you get your team, your family, maybe it's your spouse, whatever you're going through, and you figure out, what do we have? Hey, we have our investments. We could liquidate our investments right now and give us the cash flow we need to deal with this problem. Hey, your cousin is an attorney. We can get them. We'll hire them for cheap to be able to help us deal with this lawsuit we just got hit with. Or C, you know, your cousin is a website designer. Right now, all our normal, I mean, I'll tell you what I'm doing in my business right now. All speaking is gone. So for me, I've had to switch to this virtual environment and build things, virtual courses and stuff like that. Those were the things that became assets in my inventory. You need to do the same. And it doesn't matter what crisis you're going through. This is the first thing that's going to give you hope. It is the positive that you're going to grab onto in that moment that enables you to start driving forward. Number 3 is A. You've got to assess options and outcomes. And I'll tell you, this is a point where a lot of people start to get a sense of urgency about them, because for a lot of people, there's a little bit of a gap between when they finally pull their head out of the sand and say, oh my God, there really is a crisis, we got to go. And suddenly they've figured out, oh, I actually have some assets and tools in my toolbox to bring to the problem. And then there's this sense of urgency to suddenly drive forward. But I have to caution you, this is a moment where we need to take a breath. And we, in the military and on the battlefield, we have a saying, it's called, let the battlefield develop. So we need to see exactly where things are moving. So if you're in a good point, it's a moment to take a breath. And believe it or not, you can allow the battlefield to develop and assess it very quickly. You know, in combat, really in about 30 seconds, you can do it. In a real world situation, thank God, hopefully you're not, you know, encountering actual real bullets and bombs. So you have a little more time to allow the battlefield to develop. The reason you want to do this is because now we have these assets and inventories. Now we need to start thinking through, okay, this is the direction we could go. We could choose option A, but what we need to do is look at what is that outcome? What is the outcome if we take option A? What is option B? What is that outcome? We call these courses of action in the military. And we think through and we play out, what is that long-term case? A lot of times when businesses, individual or teams are in a crisis, they will choose the simplest solution right up front instead of truly thinking through the outcome. And oftentimes the simplest solution is not the best solution. It does not set you up for long-term success. And sometimes it can actually put you right back on the X in a worse situation. So this is why it's critical to think through the options and the outcomes. And oftentimes it is the harder decision. It is the short-term pain for that long-term gain when you're in a crisis situation and truly having to change. Number 4 is C. You've got to choose and communicate. Oftentimes leaders will go through this process and they get to the options and outcomes, and then they will do I call it the leadership rumination dance. They sit there and they spin over all these decisions and they're like, well, I could choose option A. Option A would be good, but I don't know, maybe option B, maybe option C. There's a lot of uncertainty. And they will sit there and spin forever. Choose. You've gone through the process. You've decided what you think will be the best outcome. One of the things of leadership is we're making decisions without all the answers. We try to gather as many answers as we can, but at the end of the day, a leader needs to make a decision, especially in a crisis, because it is time driven. The longer we sit on that X, the more it pulls us down. So this is the point. You must choose, and then you must communicate. This accomplishes 2 things. Number 1, it accomplishes a level of accountability within you, because it's easy to keep things inside and continue to think about them if you're the only one that's allowing them to rattle around inside your brain. If you actually choose one and you articulate it, suddenly the people around you are expecting you to do it. And also it's human nature. Once we put something out there, now there's an additional level of weight to start going after it. So 1, it provides that accountability. 2, it provides hope for the people around you. Your teammates, your family, your coworkers, your company. They need to know that, you know, because guess what? When there is a life ambush, when there is a crisis, you are never on the X alone. I don't care what crisis you're going through. The X has a gravitational pull to it. Your family gets pulled onto it. Your kids get pulled onto it. Your coworkers, your employees, your company, believe it or not, your clients even get pulled onto the X with you. And that's why it's so critical that you have to communicate, hey guys, this is what's happened. This is what we're doing. This is the direction we're going. And it provides hope. People are like, in a crisis, people want to be told what to do. They want to be told, oh my God, this is the direction we're going. That guy knows where we're going. I'm following him or her. So it doesn't really matter, but choose and communicate. And then, guy, the last step of the REACT methodology is you must take action. So many people will get to this last step and then they're waiting for the perfect moment. Hey, we developed this plan. We know what we're going to do. I've communicated it. And then they just stand there and they're like, okay, ready? Go. No, not yet. Don't go yet. Okay, ready? Not yet. This happens in gunfights. You know, we really need to move. And there's like, we got to wait till there's a lull in fire. Well, a really well-trained enemy force, there will not be a lull in fire. They know how to change their weapons at different rates. So there's always constantly bullets flowing. So there has to be a level of violence of action that needs to occur where you come out strong and you just go. And life is no different. You know, you must take action. You must execute. Movement is life, guys. It's one of the biggest things we talk about in an ambush. Your ability to get off the X is dictated by how quickly you move. I know in business, we talk about speed of implementation. It is no different when you are on the X. It is speed of implementation of that plan once you've gone through that REACT methodology. We don't want to do this impulsive plan that we haven't actually identified what our assets inventory, we haven't thought through what the options and outcomes are, and we haven't communicated it, because now you're going to create chaos. We obviously need to go through this flow, and this is what's going to get you off the X. It is amazing to me because this process works. I've had so many people now that this is all laid out in my second book, Overcome. I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me that have read that book and have said to me, wow, I am so thankful that I read this before this pandemic occurred because I feel so better prepared for it. There's a second component of it, and the book was laid out in this manner. It was laid out that if you are currently in a life ambush and a crisis, that you have the tools, basically the REACT methodology is all in the first part of the book. The second part of the book is how do we be more proactive to deal with other ambushes that are coming along? Because like I told you guys, there are more ambushes. This pandemic is not the last ambush you're going to see. There are more. So how do you live your life in a manner that you are ready for them? And this is one of the most critical things you can do is position your life in a way that you are ready for these ambushes when they come. There's a whole series of steps that I talk about, but I'm gonna finish so that we have some time for Q&A with something that I teach, and actually it's something that came about, and it's in the second part of my book. There were a lot of people that read my story in my first book that tried it, which is really more of the military memoir section. And it talks about the leadership failure, and it talks about my injuries and subsequent recovery, and then the launch of my nonprofit and things like that. So a lot of people would reach out to me, and there was a lot of leadership lessons, and they would say, Jay, how did you do this? And I'll be honest, I could not articulate the answer to people. I would say, oh, it's the overcome mindset. And they'd say, well, tell us how to do that. And I could not give people a step-by-step process. So over the years, as I started working with more individuals, companies, and key leaders who had been through a crisis, I started to see a theme. And it was the same theme I recognized in myself, that when I was severely wounded, I was strong in 5 critical areas. And these areas, I've come up with a different name. Some of these you guys are going to recognize. There are different leaders out there that speak on these different things. But I call it the Pentagon of peak performance. If you study martial arts, one of the key things of martial arts is balance, our ability to be balanced, our ability to flow or engage with the energy that we're encountering. Life's no different. Crisis is no different. In order to have balance, there are things that we need to do. We need to be proactive in our life with key areas. So when I talk about the Pentagon of peak performance, it's 5 key areas that you need to lead yourself in. You need to put time and effort into at least once a week so that you are balanced in these areas. Most people that totally get bowled over in a crisis, that just get totally crushed on the X, are individuals that I've come to find that were not balanced in those key areas. They might have been strong in 1 or 2, but they were weak in the others. The first level is physical leadership. Guys, you are born a sports car. I mean, if you ever watch any kid, man, they're running around all the time. They're running, they're jumping, they're going 1,000 miles an hour with their energy. And as we get older, our energy levels start to wane. And not only that, if you are an entrepreneur, you are at that critical point of your life where time is essential. Not only is time essential, we're trying to run a business, we're trying to run a family, we're trying to run ourselves. And typically what happens is our physical leadership gets pushed to the back burner. We're burning the midnight oil. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to eat healthy. But guys, I got to tell you, it is the fundamental, most important thing you can do to take care of yourself and to optimize your ability to manage stress and your ability to deal with a crisis when it comes. When I was wounded, I needed almost 60% of my blood supply had to be replenished through blood transfusions. The doctors told me it was a miracle I survived. And they told me that the reason you survived, one, I think some of it had to do with willpower. Some I think had to do with the big man upstairs. And the other thing they told me, it was my level of physical fitness. I was literally in the best shape of my life because I was training for that screening for that next tier SEAL team when I was wounded. You got to take care of yourself. You don't need fitness at that level, but I will say, move your body, put good things into your body, nutrition. And guys, don't underestimate the power of sleep. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that are like, oh, I get by on 4 hours a night. And then I love the fact that they want to bring up the SEAL teams to me. Oh, the SEALs do it all the time. Yeah, you know what? We are learning more and more through science, and we will never change training because it's so, Hell Week's such a critical component where you go a week without sleep because it forges people. But we also are learning the damage it does to people's body over time. You are going to be so much better and handle stress better if you're taking it yourself. Number 2, mental leadership. Mental leadership is our ability to be constantly reading, absorbing knowledge, expanding our knowledge base, seeking out mentors, doing those things to time collapse, and getting outside of your comfort zone. These are the things that are going to help you grow. I had gone through this tremendous journey where I had failed as a leader. I had done all this reading, all this studying, and holy cow, was I outside of my comfort zone for years. That set me up for such success. My mental leadership was off the charts when I was wounded. So many people always say to me, oh my God, you being wounded and what you went through must be the hardest thing you ever went through. No, that leadership failure and coming back, grinding my way back, working alongside guys who were like, I don't want that guy to lead me. That was the hardest thing I ever went through. Number 3, emotional leadership. How do you manage your emotions? I got to tell you, calm in the chaos is one of the strongest assets you have. Your ability to manage your emotions, your ability to project positivity at all times as a leader. I watch so many leaders of companies, the way they talk to their people, the way they talk to their spouse, and the zingers that they'll throw out that do zero to further that relationship down the road, aside from one thing, it makes them feel better. It's an ego trip. Learn how to manage your emotions and manage your mouth. That is strong emotional leadership. Learn how to be positive in the negative. That sign on the door that Nick talked about at the beginning, that is a perfect example of emotional leadership. I was really struggling with where I was when I was in the hospital. That occurred about 7 days after my injuries. So here I was at the height of my career, getting ready to, step out. I'd redeem myself. Here I was combat proven. I was proven as a combat leader. I had been, chosen to be able to screen, to go to this next team. And suddenly I'm laying in a hospital bed with doctors telling me they're going to amputate my arm, telling me I'll never regain use of my hand, which is why they're going to amputate my arm, telling me it's going to take years. I'm trached, I'm wired shut. They're feeding me out of a stomach tube. I'm too weak to even get out of bed. And while all this is happening, I had some individuals that had come into the room and the doctors are talking to me and they're holding a conversation by themselves. And I caught a piece of it. And what they were talking about is what a shame, what a pity. We send these young men and women off to war and they come home broken and battered and they're never going to be the same. They're never going to achieve their American dream. What a waste. And I remember thinking to myself, is that it? Is this me? Is this my life? Here I was at the height of my career and now I'm this pity party. Choice is one of the most powerful things you have when it comes to emotional leadership. You're going to have all kinds of negativity around you. You're going to have all kinds of people that tell you can't do it. You're going to be inundated with those thoughts of no hope, beyond my control, all those things. Emotional leadership is controlled by choice. Choose positivity in the face of negativity. It was in that moment that I chose, I will not be a victim. I will be a victor. I will drive forward. I will set the example and lift others up if they're unwilling to understand where I'm going. And it was in that moment I wrote that sign on the door and we hung it on the door and it went on, to motivate and inspire millions of people. It's been written about in countless books. It hangs in the Wounded Ward at Walter Reed. I tell you that because emotional leadership is one of the most powerful, it is probably the most powerful aspect of the Pentagon at Peak Performance, at least one of the most powerful areas if you can learn to control it, because it's your ability to choose positivity in negative situations. And the ripple effect that grows out of it, you never know the impact of it. When I wrote that sign, I wrote it as a statement for me, but it went on to motivate and inspire. To this day, it still motivates and inspires millions of people. Never underestimate the power. Number 3 is social leadership. How do you invest in the rings of people around you? As entrepreneurs, we have a natural tendency to spend a lot of time investing in our business relationships, our client relationships. It's kind of this American and a little bit less to a European thing. A lot of other countries out there do a pretty good job balancing the family aspects. One of the great things that I got the opportunity to travel around the world and see. But I want to tell you that your rings of influence, the work relationships and your clients are the outermost ring, and then they start to come in. Within the next ring, you have your acquaintances, which are the closer friends we build in work. From there, it becomes our close friends. And then the centermost ring is your closest friends and family. You need to be investing in those innermost rings. And here's the reason why. When crisis, when massive catastrophe, when a life ambush hits, those are the rings that are going to be there for you. We all ride on trains in this life. I rode on the SEAL train. A lot of us are riding on the entrepreneur train. But the bottom line is when a life ambush comes along, we all think that we're going to get off at a certain stop. But when this life ambush comes and you're on the X, you get thrown off the train and the other people keep going. And they may reach out to you every now and then, but at the end of the day, they're focused on getting to their destination on that train, and you're no longer on that train. But you know who gets off the train with you? Your friends and family. And if you haven't invested in those relationships, it makes it that much harder to get off that X. The last one, guys, is spiritual leadership. Understanding there's a great big world out there. When we're on the X and we're feeling sorry for ourselves, there's this natural tendency to just focus inward and just think about, oh my God, oh, woe is me. I've lost everything. All I want is that back there. No one understands the problems I'm going through. Get over yourself. There are so many bigger problems in the world than what you're going through. It's unfortunate if your business is suffering. It's unfortunate if you've lost your money. Whatever is going on, it doesn't matter because you're still alive. Still alive, can't quit, drive forward, recreate it again. There's a lot of people out there that are living, oh my God, I mean, they're sex slaves, they're tortured. I mean, there's so many bad things in the world. Spiritual leadership is understanding there's a bigger world out there beyond you. And you need to get out there. You need to do things that get outside of your own mind. For some, it's faith. Faith plays a part for me. I also am a big fan of breathing exercises to clear my mind and to take some time. Meditation is one, yoga, obviously giving back, doing things to give back, philanthropic support or volunteering. All of these things build your spiritual leadership so that when crises come along, you have perspective and you can say, you know what, this sucks, but it's not that bad. I'm still alive. I still have my family. And you know what? We will rebuild because it's what we do. So guys, that is a shotgun approach to my overcome mindset and how you build it. If I leave you with anything, focus on, plant this phrase into your mind. If you want to overcome, you have to get off the X and react. You have to get off the X and react. Those are the critical things, and then build balance in the Pentagon and peak performance. So, Nick, I want to say thank you, and I will definitely open it up for questions.
Awesome. I appreciate that. That was fantastic. As per usual, we got about 8 minutes here, and I'll open up with I see one question there. Dan, what do you got?
Oh, so much going rattling around in my brain right now. I mean, again, thank you. That was awesome, and it's always encouraging to see some overlaps in terms of, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, in terms of some of the principles and methodologies that we think about, and then hearing the practical application of them in your life. So that was just again awesome. Where do you see, in terms of going to kind of the react method, is there a place where you see folks kind of fall down the most often or try to skip over?
Recognition is usually the biggest sticking point. People, I don't know what it is. There's just a natural tendency as humans that we want to ignore problems until it becomes so big that we can no longer ignore it. And oftentimes it's in that failure to recognize state where it just becomes harder and harder. The problem grows and grows to a point it's almost impossible to overcome. So this is why I convey to people that recognition is the most critical thing. But if I would tell you to do two things, if you're in a situation where maybe it's some kind of insane situation where you really don't have time to let the battlefield develop, then do steps 1 and 5. Recognize you're in a crisis and take action. Just move. Any movement is better than just sitting there. You know, you may move from one bad position to another bad position, but the thing is, once we get momentum going, it's easier to keep momentum going. Where it's harder is to get that momentum going when we've been stuck.
Yeah. Gosh, so true. We talk about in our framework compile, so like get all the data there, so you know what's actually going on, and that's the step that people want to skip. They want to jump and strategize. And what are you strategizing on? Do you even know what the crisis is using your language that you're really trying to solve? Like we really got to get that data. So again, just recognizing the overlap in our content. Nick, what questions do you have?
I'll read off the ones here. I can always just bug Jason via text or something if I got more. Here's a really good one. Kids are watching their parents process trauma in living time and on TV and on social. And so our question was, how did your kids process the journey?
So it's a great question, Misty. Thank you for asking it. And my kids came out of this amazingly well. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I think the number one thing, leadership is leadership all across the board. So the 3 rules of leadership that I talk about, lead yourself, lead others, lead always, they apply as a parent, they apply running a team, they apply running a business. So if you're an angry person and if you're always stressed out, your kids are going to learn from you and they're going to feed off that energy. If you project positivity in the face of negativity in your home, your kids are going to feed off that also. And my wife and I made a decision right from the beginning that we were not going to let it disrupt our kids' routine. And thankfully, we had family that were able to do that. There were other things. I didn't want my kids to see me in the hospital bed. I was really mangled in the beginning. So I wouldn't let the kids see me in the hospital bed with all the tubes and the ICU stuff on me. It was about 3.5 weeks before I saw my kids. And I said, I'm going to walk in the room they're in. And there was a little family living room area in the hospital. And that's what I did. And I think that was a critical thing. Those 2 things, keeping the kids' routine and making sure that I was controlling the narrative for them that, hey, dad's messed up, but dad's okay. He's not laying in a hospital bed where they're thinking, oh my God, dad may die. We controlled that narrative. And I think that's critical. But at the same time, we also gave them the facts. And I think this is really important, transparency and facts at the right time. Obviously, my wife did not tell my kids right in the very beginning that I had been shot in the face because my wife didn't know what my mental state was in the beginning. She just got the word that I had been all shot up and I had taken a gunshot wound to the face. And of course, what everybody thinks is what's his mental state. So it was later she told my kids about that. But I think the biggest thing, your kids are going to feed off you, be a leader, set the example. Rule number 1, lead yourself. Your kids will follow that example. My kids are rock stars now. They're all of them in their own way. And they're now 20, 17, and 15.
Awesome. Cool. I'll get 2 more real quick. How does humility enable you to be an effective leader? So I'll let you hit that.
So humility is such an important thing. And it was one of the things that I failed at as a young leader when I started making mistakes, because I think there's a tendency in leadership that we should know everything. And it's just not true. Good leaders understand that they have their strengths. Excuse me. They have their strengths as well as their weaknesses. And really good leaders build teams of people that are better than them. And in the SEAL teams, we have amazingly super talented, highly capable individuals on our teams. And when I came back the second time, after I'd made those mistakes, how I built those relationships back was, if we were doing mobility training, we had engineering guys that it was their job to understand how the vehicle worked. And I'd come to them and I'd be like, hey, John, I don't know anything about this vehicle. And I know it's not my job, but you're the subject matter expert. I'd love for you to teach me, because one of my jobs was the mobility force commander. It was my job to navigate and get us to those targets. There's amazing power in humbling yourself and saying to somebody else, hey, you're the subject matter expert. And even though technically I'm above you or I'm a leader, asking them to share their knowledge with you, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel valued. That's humble leadership. And it goes a long way to build relationships and to build culture within a team.
Perfect. Yeah. Huge fan of that. Dan and I are very similar and staying, we had Chris Voss And one of the things he said is stay curious. And that's part of, for me, that's part of humility is like, I can't technically might be above or below somebody, but I'm intensely or hopelessly curious in what I can learn from them and how they can contribute and how we can do things together. Last two things. How do you incorporate following into leading always? You could take a stab at that, or if we want to try to get some clarity, that's okay too. How do you incorporate following into leading always?
So when I talk about leading always, it's this idea that you cannot pick and choose when you're a leader. Once you step into a leadership role, you're always a leader. You're always a father, or you're always a mother or a father, or you're the leader of a business, or I don't know, deacon in a church, whatever it is, you're always that individual. It doesn't matter if they see you in Target and you're shopping and you have a bad day. If you snap at somebody when you're in Target, guess what? They don't look at you as, hey, Bill, the Target shopper was angry. They look at you as Bill, the CEO of that company. What a jerk. I don't want to work for that guy anymore. So I think this is where that the ability to understand that you're always a leader and people are going to give you input in any environment. I'm very attuned to my emotional leadership because I know I run hot. So when I get really tired, I can get snappy, and I recognize that. So as I've gotten older, I try to make sure that if I start getting really tired, to not put myself in those situations if I can help it. And so following while leading always, I think is still that humility of setting that example, being positive, and recognizing where you are.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much. We had Ray on Wednesday. We got you today. We got Dr. Gabby Lyon on Monday. So
nice.
Killer lineup of people, and probably in the appropriate order too. I think it worked out really, really well. Can you just let everybody know? I mean, obviously you have your book. If they want to reach out, if they want to learn more, if they just want to consume, I know you have some TED Talks and stuff. Best way, fastest way, easiest way.
Yeah. Before you answer, anybody who wants a copy of the book, send me a message. I'll buy it and send it to you.
Yeah. I made a note to make the same offer later, so.
Stole your thunder.
Bug Dan instead, yeah. Bug Dan. Let him deal with it.
Right there. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, you can find me at jasonredman.com. That's my speaking website. That's the main hub, but it'll also take you, or you can go directly there to getoffx.com. Getoffx.com is my coaching and consulting site. I have some online courses there. The entryway to my group coaching program, Overcome Army. Through jasonredman.com, you can find all my socials. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And then if you're interested, like Dan talked about with the book, I sell both books. The first book, The Trident, was a New York Times bestseller, and Overcome just came out in December. Both books are on the getoffx.com store. Make sure, and Dan, if they're going to come through you, please let Dan know how you want me to personalize it, because if there's not a message, I just sign them because I don't know if it's for you or someone else.
Cool.
Awesome. I have to get back. I have a private client event. I took a little hour break to do this, so I got to get back to them. Obviously, anything you need, just reach out to us. We'll do the same, and I'll send you this recording, and you can do whatever you wish with it. We'll also double check. We'll probably edit out some of the Q&A, and then if you're comfortable with it, we'll throw it out there on a podcast and stuff.
I'm good with that.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
And Nick, I'll reach back out to you a little later. I'd like
perfect.
to, if we can talk more.
Yep.
So, and Dan, awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was awesome. Really inspiring. And
yeah,
we'll chat more too.
Oh,
and thank
Jason.
you, everyone. I know that there are several. Sonia, I just wanted to say thank you for your service as a special operations wife, and Misty as a Navy family. I thank you guys, and anyone else out there that's military. Just much appreciation.
Awesome. Thank you, and we'll chat soon.
Okay. All right, guys.